The AFC South is a very, very undetermined division in 2025. And what I mean by that is all these teams feel like this is the year that they solidify the direction that they are headed for the next half decade. Whether it's finding out that they do have their franchise quarterback, finding out that they are Super Bowl contenders, or finding out that they have their head coach of the future, or finding out that they have none of those things. The AFC South really is a division to keep your eye on in 2025, despite a lackluster 2024. In 2024, the Houston Texans did win this division yet again with a 10-7 record. The Colts finished in second with an 8-9 record, and then at the bottom of the barrel, the Jaguars 4-13 and the Tennessee Titans 3-14. They were the number 1 and number 2 picks in this draft. Granted, Jacksonville did have to trade up for that spot. Today, we're going to continue my divisional preview series on the channel. 8 divisions, 4 weeks. Today, AFC South football. Let's talk about it. In 4th place with a record of 5-12, missing the playoffs, I have the Tennessee Titans. All right, Titans fans, I get it. You feel that your team has more potential than the 5-12 record that I gave them. And I'll agree with you on that standpoint. They certainly have more potential than the 5-12 record that I gave them. The Tennessee Titans, if everything goes their way, could be a sleeper team and seriously could vie for a playoff spot in the AFC this year. A lot of that obviously falls on the back of Cam Ward, rookie quarterback, number 1 overall pick. And it's not that we haven't seen guys do it before. We saw Jaden Daniels, a rookie, lead his team to the NFC Championship last year. Cam Ward certainly could be good enough to lead Tennessee to competing in this division and competing for a wild card spot, absolutely. However, I think that it's not going to be an overnight success thing when it comes to Cam Ward. I believe he'll be a good player, and we'll talk more on that in a second, but with their defense and with a coaching staff looking to prove itself, Tennessee certainly has a lot to figure out in this 2025 season. As we look at the Titans offense, we do have to circle back to talking about Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick from this previous NFL draft. How do I see this guy's career playing out? I've seen Jaden Daniels comp. I've seen, is he going to be the next Josh Rosen, and Tennessee is drafting another quarterback in next year's draft comp? I got to put to bed that right now. I do think Cam Ward is going to be fine, and I do think he will be the quarterback of the Titans for the next 4 to 5 years. Absolutely. I could certainly see that. But when it comes to Cam Ward's development, I don't think it's going to be as quick as Jaden Daniels. I don't think he is as pro ready as even Bo Nix was last year. I think Cam Ward has some really raw skills that need to be refined at the NFL level. But if they can be refined, he has superstar ability. Either way, the Tennessee Titans are going to have a better quarterback this year than they did last year. Will Levis was virtually unwatchable, and he is the main driving force that this team had the number 1 overall pick. It wasn't that they were the worst team in the NFL in terms of talent. It was that their quarterback was really just that bad. And I saw Will Levis's shoulder injury. I hope he gets better. I hope he develops, and I hope he finds his way similar to Sam Darnold. But it won't be in Tennessee. When it comes to Cam Ward, I do want to talk about his pros and cons. Pros: mobile, strong arm, and a point guard quarterback. If you're new to my channel, point guard quarterback, I refer to that as a guy who is a distributor that plays the game at kind of like a 0.75 speed, similar to Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels per se. When you watched Cam Ward in college, this guy was very calm in the pocket, easy flick of the wrist, just felt like he was a point guard on a really good offense. Some of the cons though. The decision-making and IQ. I think Cam Ward has a tendency to feel like he is Superman and be the superhero, and he can make any play rather than just play for the next down. And in Tennessee and in the NFL, that could certainly hurt him. I do think there's going to be a bit of a roller coaster of, hey, how good is Cam Ward in this moment versus how good is he the next game? Quarter to quarter, game to game, week to week, month to month, you could see some sporadic play from Cam Ward. Ultimately, the goal is to have him refined for 2026. And Tennessee certainly did their best job getting Cam Ward ready to go for this season and at least giving him a shot at success. When you look at his weapons, he does have a solid run game behind him with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. I think that is a good backfield, absolutely. Weapons, you have Calvin Ridley, who I do think under Cam Ward could be a 1,000-yard receiver yet again and actually have a really solid year. Chigon Konkwu, you brought in a veteran in Tyler Lockett and Van Jefferson, and then you have a plethora of rookie wide receivers, including his college teammate Xavier Restrepo. Don't get me wrong, it's not the craziest receiving room out there, but there are pieces for him to work with. And they made a real effort to upgrade the offensive line, which certainly needed it. They paid tackle Dan Moore. I'm excited to see what, Kevin Zeitler looks like on this offensive line. They brought him in over from, I believe, Detroit, like another really solid veteran presence. J.C. Latham, another year of development. Tennessee could have a middle of the pack offensive line, which is better than where they were at last season, and Cam Ward certainly needs it. Tennessee, I believe, is investing in Cam Ward's development, which is a good sign for this offense going forward. When it comes to Tennessee's defense, I think this is one of the more underrated units in all of football last season. They were in the top 5 in terms of yards allowed per game. Tennessee's defense did make you fight for every single win. Now, Will Levis helped other teams out by throwing terrible interceptions and putting them in great field position, but Tennessee's defense made it hard on you. They weren't the best against the run game, and I'm excited to see if they could develop that a little bit further this year. Guys like Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons on that defensive line should surely be helpful. I like Roger McCreary. I'm excited to see if we can get a bounce-back season from L'Jarius Sneed. This was overall a pretty solid defensive unit last year that I think is going to be relatively the same this year. The peak on their wins and their improvement really does come from the changes on the offense. The defense kind of virtually stayed pretty much the same. 2025 for the Titans is going to come down to their question marks, and they are at the biggest spots in football. Quarterback with Cam Ward, head coach with Brian Callahan. I'm not ready to write off Callahan by any means, because what was he really given to work with at quarterback last year? But we are into another year now with Callahan where it's like, okay, you have another rookie quarterback. This one's a #1 overall pick. I got to see where you're at as a head coach. I got to see if you are the guy to lead this team into the future, because the front office clearly believes Cam Ward is. And if Callahan really drops the ball and we see like an Eberflus level coaching, I could see Callahan getting the boot, absolutely. And for Cam Ward, like I said, we're not going to just completely judge him off of all of his bad games in 2025, but there has to be spike weeks. It is going to be, there has to be some highs to go with the lows. And I do think there will be highs and I do think there'll be lows. I just think that the kind of player that Cam Ward is, that's where we're destined to be. And that's why I have Tennessee finishing at 5 wins. But the most important thing is knowing at the end of the season, if you're a Titans fan, hey, for 2026 and beyond, we got our QB, we got our head coach. Let's build this roster around them. If you could do that, I would say this year is a win for Titans fans. In third place at a record of 6-11, I have the Indianapolis Colts. They will be missing the playoffs. The Indianapolis Colts were actually one of the toughest teams for me to predict in the NFL this year, because I actually really do like their roster and think that they improved their defense greatly, but I hate their quarterback room. I just don't believe that in 2025, Daniel Jones is a quarterback that could lead a team to a playoff run. I think it was a miracle that he did it with the Giants, and it really fell a lot on the back of Brian Daboll and Saquon Barkley, which, listen, you have Shane Steichen and Jonathan Taylor. So if you want to say as a Colts fan that's replicable, I can't really disagree with you. And Anthony Richardson, man, it's kind of like Kyle Pitts to me at this point. How many times are we going to keep on saying, this guy's got all the tools, this is the year, this is the year? I'm out. The tap on the helmet, the quitting on his teammates, I'm out. Listen, if he proves to be right and he's the guy, congratulations for the Colts. They'll probably really compete for this division. But to me, I am out on both quarterbacks on the roster. I think that they're building a foundation. I think next year is a quarterback heavy draft class. I think there's going to be a lot of good options, and the Colts could trade up and get their guy, or they could wait and get another guy, because I do think there's about 5 or 6 quarterbacks in this draft class that could be franchise guys, very similar to the one 2 years ago where Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy were falling to the back of the top 10, and we're at the top. The first 3 picks were quarterbacks. You got like a Nussmeier, Sellers, Aller, Klubnik. Like, there is plenty of guys coming in this 2026 draft class. But at the end of the day, with a good roster but a bad quarterback, it landed the Colts at 6 wins for me. When we talk about this offensive unit, obviously, like I mentioned, I don't feel confident in it with either Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. To be honest, I don't even know which one I feel more confident as that guy. I think they're going to start the year with Richardson, just giving him another opportunity. I love Shane Steichen at head coach. I think he's a great offensive coordinator. I think the weapons there are really solid. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell, Tyler Warren. Like, these are really, really good weapons. The offensive line, despite losing Fries and Kelly, still has one of the better left side of offensive lines in football, and still should be at least middle of the pack. All the tools are there. If Anthony Richardson can take that jump and finally be that guy, like, the Colts seriously could push for a playoff spot. I just am choosing not to believe in this guy anymore. But if I'm proven wrong, like Steichen, a great running back, 3 really solid wide receivers, a first round pick at tight end, a good offensive line, everything is there for the Colts to succeed offensively, except a quarterback that I believe in. At his high, yeah, Anthony Richardson could be Cam Newton-esque, but at his low, he's unplayable. And then you have to turn to a Daniel Jones, who I think we have enough of a track record to see, like, yeah, maybe in some close games you could squeak out wins, but with how good the AFC is, especially at quarterback, I just don't see them winning games with Daniel Jones at QB. And then we get to the Colts defense, which I do think is one of the more underrated units in football, because I do think it has top 15 upside as being a better half defense in the entire NFL, despite not being very good last year. They have one of the sneaky best secondaries in football with Kenny Moore, Charvarius Ward, Cam Bynum, and Nick Ross. Up front, some really good talent. DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, Latu, Zaire Franklin, and all of this is going to be brought together by new defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. And I know that a lot of people are out on Anarumo because of what he did recently with Cincinnati, but if you go all the way back to 2021 when the Bengals made the Super Bowl, yes, Joe Burrow was awesome, but a big part of that was how Lou Anarumo had this defense playing when he had talent, when they could afford talent. And the Bengals decided we're investing only on offense. You'll have just Trey Hendrickson, and it fell apart. This Colts team, though, does have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. And when you consider that Anarumo has a lot more just variety to his play calling than Gus Bradley, I do think that this Colts defense could be really surprising this year and actually could be the strongest unit on this team. The sky for the Colts is bright. The future is bright, I should say, if they get the right quarterback. And when it comes to the Colts, I haven't really decided if tanking is the best thing for this team to do or actually going out there and trying to compete. Again, I get it that some of this is going to sound really pessimistic to Anthony Richardson believers, and I'm sorry to be that guy. I just don't believe it. At the end of the day, it's one of the better rosters in the NFL without a quarterback. That's why I struggled so much with debating which games that they would win and which games that they would lose, because there were some teams that they square off against where I'm like, yes, the Colts roster outside of quarterback is better than them. But how many points can I actually rely on this quarterback to lead the offense to? Whereas if they sucked this year and ended up with a top 5 pick, and Drew Aller is who I think he's going to be at Penn State, and you reunite him with Tyler Warren going into 2026, I think, holy crap, the Colts could win this division. But if they're too good, like 8 and 9 last year, and they miss out on QBs, and all of a sudden it's Daniel Jones or a 50-year-old Joe Flacco running this team, why would they not just end up in the same spot again? Colts fans, I hope it works out for you, but I have some real concern that you're going to be too good, but not good enough. Finishing second in this division, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars with a record of 7-10, missing out on the playoffs. Before we talk about Duval, make sure you hit that subscribe. I'm sorry, that was really cringe. But if you love the NFL, seriously, I got a lot of great NFL content on this channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as we continue this divisional preview series. I won't take up any more time. Back to talking about the Jags. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, coming into this offseason and coming into the 2025 season, made a lot of change. New head coach, traded up for a really great, wide receiver, cornerback, prospect, unicorn that we've never seen before, and some overall roster movement. And a lot of the outcomes are to be determined. There is a lot of question marks on this team. Head coach, quarterback, star prospect, defense, offensive line. There are question marks everywhere when it comes to Jacksonville, which does make their range of outcomes very hard to predict, but I have them finishing at 7-10, and I want to talk about why that is. So when it comes to the offense, Jacksonville brought in Liam Cohen this offseason to be the head coach of this team. He was formerly the offensive coordinator of the Buccaneers, who Baker Mayfield just had a great season, to come in and fix Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, obviously, many of you guys know that have been watching the channel for a minute, is a prospect that I really believe in. I thought he was a better prospect than Caleb Williams. I thought he was the best prospect that I have personally scouted as a 25-year-old. So take that with a grain of salt. I didn't scout Andrew Luck like I was 12, okay? Trevor Lawrence is the best prospect that I saw once I was really into football, and he just hasn't lived up to what his potential could have been. And now Trevor Lawrence has a contract that is kicking in, which I know that there's void years on the back of it, so it's not exactly the $55 million per year, but they have a lot of money vested in this guy, and he has not met that potential yet. The potential, similar to what we said about Anthony Richardson, He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the arm strength, he's got the arm talent. But Trevor, the IQ, he just hasn't put it all together yet. We've seen glimpses. We saw Jacksonville 2 years ago make a push to get into the playoffs. They come back from behind against the Chargers. Trevor Lawrence leads that. Going into the next year, they open up the next season 8-3. He gets hurt, and they have been shit ever since. Shit ever since. And it's like, well, who is this guy? Is Trevor Lawrence the guy that went 8-3 and won a playoff game? Or is he the garbage that we've seen for the last season and a half? The Jacksonville Jaguars said, we're going to bring in Liam Cohen and find out, because this guy's been pretty damn good. And they've also said, hey, we're going to make sure Trevor Lawrence has all the pieces to succeed. Brian Thomas Jr., who they drafted last year, the guy is a fringe top 10 wide receiver in football. Travis Hunter, who they brought in, is going to play some wide receiver. And to me, he was a top 3 wide receiver prospect in the draft class. And oh yeah, he also helps out on your defensive side of the ball. ETN, Tank Bigsby, a good running back room. Not great, but good. They were top half last year in terms of rushing production. And De'Ami Brown, who they brought in as a 3, is a solid option. The offensive line, it's not good. But not everything's going to be perfect on your NFL team forever. I do think that the offense this year under Liam Cohen, with Trevor Lawrence, with those weapons, has to show something. They have to be a top 15 offense. And even though I have the Jags at 7-10 missing the playoffs, that doesn't mean that that unit can't succeed. Look at what the Bengals offense was last year when they missed the playoffs. The Jaguars offense can prove something to us this year, despite the record that I said. When it comes to the defensive side of the ball for this team, I really do have my concerns. It really hurt them in 2024. I'm kind of betting against it at this point in 2025. I like Josh Hines-Allen. He's still a really good piece, but I question what they actually have outside of him. PFF's 29th ranked defensive line. Trayvon Walker, are you going to be that guy? I just don't know. Every time that I see Trayvon Walker, I think, man, Jaguars could have drafted Aiden Hutchinson, and I'm sure Jaguars fans feel the same way, so I don't need to stress on that. Can they get good cornerback play from guys like Campbell and Lewis, and in that secondary? I don't know. The Jaguars defense is really the unit that I expect to hold back this team in 2025. I think that they're going to be a fun team to watch because of that defense. And similar to how I talked about the Raiders in Monday's video, like, they're not going to win enough games to make the playoffs, but they're going to be in some fun shootout games is my expectation. And listen, at the end of the day, if I'm a Jaguars fan, would making the playoffs and competing for this division in 2025 be nice? Absolutely. But what I'm concerning with myself with is, did we pay the wrong guy at quarterback? I have to see Trevor Lawrence be successful this year by just individual stats and by the eye test. You have the weapons, you have the head coach, you have a two-dimensional offense because there is a real running game there. You have to be good this year if you're Trevor Lawrence. If Trevor Lawrence has another bad year, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to just kind of be in purgatory for the next few seasons if they can't move off of him. Because at the end of the day, the quarterback is the most important position in football. They have to figure out what they have at quarterback, at head coach, and is Travis Hunter what we traded up for? Obviously, there's a big unicorn there. We've never seen it before, but we never saw it before with Ohtani too. And now it's just like, yeah, that's freaking Shohei Ohtani. Can Travis Hunter truly be a Pro Bowl level wide receiver and cornerback? Can he just be good at both positions and keep up with that cardio? Those are the big things for Jacksonville this year. Is Trevor Lawrence actually good or bad? And what the hell did we draft in Travis Hunter? And can he live up to expectations? Wins, to me, throw him out the window. It's not going to be a Super Bowl team no matter what this year. Would it be nice to make the wild card round and show people like, hey, we got a really bright future? Absolutely. But those are the two things that I have to see in 2025 if I'm a Jags fan. And of course, that means finishing first in the AFC South and being the 3 seed in the AFC playoffs. I have the Houston Texans at a record of 11-6. The talk about the Houston Texans has really started to piss me off as an NFL fan. I have to be honest, because I don't understand the way that the media, and it's not even just big TV media, it's all the way down to people like me who are just smaller content creators, are viewing this team. They are viewing the Houston Texans as if the sky has started to fall this offseason and is falling at this point in time. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. The sky already fell on Houston last year. I don't understand how people believe that the sky is now falling. Throughout the course of last season for Houston, their offensive line was terrible. Their top 3 receiving options in Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell all had major injuries, and it resulted in Diggs and Tank Dell being out for the season. Nico Collins missed like a month and a half of action. Bobby Slowick sucked. He was a terrible offensive coordinator last season. Will Anderson Jr., a premier player on their defense, missed a little bit of time. I believe he missed close to a month of action. Like, the sky already fucking fell on the Houston Texans last year. Yet, people are talking about it as if it's falling now because Laremy Tunsil was traded. Guys, the offensive line sucked last year. Maybe it'll suck again this year, but it already sucked. At the end of the day, when you look at Houston, defense is healthy and better offensive coordinator, healthy weapons. If the offensive line goes from shitty to shitty, the team is still in a better spot today. And last year, when the sky fell on this team, they were 10-7 and won a playoff game. So I don't really understand the people that are saying Houston's going to go below 500 and somebody else in this team is going to win the division. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Let's talk about the Texans offense as a whole, because obviously this was a unit that struggled last season and has a lot of pressure on it going into this year. CJ Stroud, did he have a sophomore slump? I think people are just assuming he did because the stats didn't match his rookie season, and statistically, sure, based on stats, he had a sophomore slump. But CJ Stroud, the player, I don't think he was worse last year than he was the previous year. I just think that there were worse circumstances around him. Again, did he have a worse offensive line than 2 years ago? I would say yes. Joe Mixon gets hurt. Nico Collins gets hurt. Stephon Diggs gets hurt. Tank Dell gets hurt. I think the only starter on that offense that didn't get hurt was freaking Dalton Schultz, the slowest man alive. So is CJ Stroud bad, or were his circumstances worse? I guess you could answer that question yourself. There were more interceptions last year than I would have liked, absolutely. So CJ has to be a bit of a better decision maker. And I do think with some of the problems that were occurred last year, he started forcing it a bit in some bigger spots, and that led to turnovers. But I don't believe that CJ Stroud is a bad quarterback. I still think he's a top 10 guy in the sport, and obviously my record for them reflects that. When I look at the weapons for this team, Nico Collins and Joe Mixon, who are both going to be NFL top 100 guys, are still there. They drafted Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel from Iowa State. And Texans fans know this. Those guys got that swarm mentality. You bring in a Christian Kirk to be a wide receiver 4 because, hey, let's bank on if one of these guys gets hurt, we have a guy. And you still have Dalton Schultz, the return of Brevin Jordan, etc. The offensive line. Do I think it will be good? No. Do I think it'll be better than the worst in football? I think that is certainly on the board. When people talk about the Texans offensive line, oh my God, they traded Laremy Tunsil, they're going to be the worst in football. I guess it's on the board. They were pretty bad last year. And to me, running it back would have been insanity. What is it, that Einstein quote? Doing the same thing multiple times and expecting different results is insanity. If the Houston Texans just ran back last year's offensive line and expected it to be better, that would have been insane. They'd moved off of the money of Laremy Tunsil, and now they have like 7 or 8 bodies that they could try and throw out there. Is it going to work? I don't know, but at least they're trying something different. And they brought in new offensive coordinator Nick Caley. Comes from the McVay tree. A lot of his offense falls on the back of the quarterback's IQ and the quarterback's making plays. That's why I said CJ Stroud with the interceptions. Working with Nick Caley, he should become improved. I want to see smarter football from CJ Stroud. I think he still got the talent that he had from his rookie season. That I don't think that just went away, but smarter football. And at the end of the day, listen, is Nick Caley going to be the next Sean McVay? I don't know. But is he really going to be worse than Bobby Slowick? And then we look at this defense, man. I think it's a top 4 defense in the NFL, and I seriously think they could push to be the best defense in the NFL. They are elite up front and elite in the secondary. Let's talk about up front. Will Anderson Jr. is my pick to be the defensive player of the year this year. You have him playing alongside Danielle Hunter. I think it's the best edge rusher duo in all of football. The team brought back Sheldon Rankins, who, again, the chemistry on this defensive line is going to be very, very strong in the 2025 season. Back up to the linebacker units now. Oto'o, Al-Shaair, Christian Harris, like 3 good linebackers. Let's back up another unit to the secondary now. Oh, you have Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter at cornerback. I wonder if those guys were good. They ranked 1st and 2nd in opponent passer rating allowed at the cornerback position. That seems like a pretty fucking good cornerback duo to me. Oh, what about at the safety spot? CJ Gardner-Johnson, Kalen Bullock, and Jalen Petrie. These are Pitts missiles just flying around on the defensive side of the ball. Even if Houston's offense is just 15th best in football, 16th best in football, middle of the pack, This defense is going to keep them in so many games that if CJ Stroud could just be smart down the stretch and be a distributor, they will win a lot of football games. This defense is loaded. And D'Amico Ryans at head coach is going to have these guys with that swarm mentality. They are going to be absolutely flying across the field, playing excellent defense. This is a scary, scary defensive unit. At the end of the day, does the Texans' ceiling fall on the back of that offensive line and what CJ Stroud and Nick Haley could do? Absolutely. But again, I have to reiterate, the sky fell on this team. They survived and they won a playoff game. That's why I have the Texans doing better in 2025 than 2024. The circumstances, at least on paper at this point in time, are better. Even if the offensive line gets a tad worse, everything else that I just talked about is already better for this Houston Texans team. And I'm tired of the narrative that we're just pulling them out of the playoffs because, hey, we don't want to have the same 4 teams winning the division every year, and it's not going to be Kansas City, Buffalo, or Baltimore that I take out. It has to be Houston, because that's the real driving point there, and that's just stupid. To recap, I have the AFC South finishing: Houston Texans 11-6, Jacksonville Jaguars 7-10, Colts 6-11, and Titans 5-12. To me, Houston is easily the best team in this division for another year. I do think come 2026, one of the, Jags, Colts, or Titans could step up to the plate and really challenge Houston for the division. I don't see it happening this year, and those teams would have to improve, whether it's on the field or through the draft, like kind of how I mentioned with the Colts. For the Texans themselves, do I think that they could win a Super Bowl this year? I think it's unlikely. I think that they're still another year away from really being at that tier, but I think that they could make an AFC championship. We will see. It will fall on the back of how good is Stroud, how good is the O-line, and how good are Higgins and Noel. If everybody in that situation reaches their peak, I guess the Super Bowl runs on the board with how good that defense is. And for these other teams, Jags, Colts, Titans, they could really finish any which way, 2 through 4, and I wouldn't be shocked. I went Jags, Colts, Titans just on personal lean, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, man. The NFL preview series will continue next week. We'll be doing the AFC North and then the AFC East. If you love the NFL and you're not yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, hit that button. I'll catch you next time. Peace.